District Podcasts, our very first guest. We're really happy to have the Wizards general manager, Tommy Sheppard, with us. Tommy, first things first, I want to thank you giving us the time, talking to a non-mainstream media outlet. We got a couple thousand fans that listen to us over the last 12 years, and so hopefully we can give them this kind of cool sit-down interview type gig here.
Hey, fellas, it's an honor to be here. I watched you guys work. I watched you grow. I know how much you hustle and grind at this thing. It's great to be here.
Appreciate it. So let's go back to the beginning. We're going to go all the way back. We're going to keep out all the childhood memories that you don't want to listen to. But when did you fall in love with the game?
6 years old, I wanted to be Julius Erving.
Man, you just killed two questions in one thing. Dr. J, you were living out in the West?
Out west, yep, in New Mexico. Julius is something that was just an unbelievable time for me growing up and being able to see his games. Usually tape delay or see pictures of him, but that's who I wanted to be. I knew at 6 years old I wanted to be in the NBA. Learned it about the age of 16, 17. It probably wasn't going to be as a player, but that was always in the back of my mind. That's where I want to be, and I don't think of it as being a dream as much as it was a goal. And it's been a crazy route. I don't know if you could replicate the route that I took, but I knew one way, one day, and that was my mantra to myself all the time, that I'm going to get to the NBA. And certainly really wanted to try to impact by running a team one day, and I know that there's definitely no easy way to say this other than you got to pay your dues, and there's an S on the end of dues. And I feel like all the experiences that I've had to get to this point led me to this point, and I certainly do not want to disappoint. This is something I waited for. I'm ready for. I'm excited because I know it's not about me. It's the team around me. It's the people that we work with every day. And I have full confidence in them, so I have full confidence in myself.
That's great. I read somewhere that New Mexico State, one of your favorite moments as a fan was beating UNLV.
Absolutely.
Their championship year, right?
Yeah, that was
it's Larry
crazy.
Johnson, Stacey Augman, right?
Yep,
That's that squad?
absolutely. Yeah, Anderson Hunt, Greg Anthony,
Yeah.
that was David Butler from D.C. Unbelievable night, the parts I remember, right? We had a great party afterwards. It was a wonderful time, but as a fan sitting in the stands that night, seeing that year New Mexico State beat UNLV, they were only us in Santa Barbara had beat them when they were at full strength. UNLV spent that whole year with some players suspended or whatnot. And they won a national championship by still an NCAA record margin over Duke. That was a great team. And that night, Keith Hill actually hit a big-time jumper at the buzzer to beat him, and jumping Johnny Roberson, whose son Andre plays for Okie City, was on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a wonderful time. Randy Brown, who won rings with the Bulls, was our point guard. And you want every United town to go out and be the number one team in the country. That was fun.
So then, what was it like eventually going to UNLV and then working with?
It gives you street cred walking in the door because they had New Mexico State. All right, this guy's coming from a good basketball school, good background. But going to UNLV changed my entire life. The whole trajectory of my life changed there. The opportunity. Most important, I met my wife who swam for UNLV, but certainly besides that, professionally, meeting Coach Tarkanian, but really Tim Gergerich, who was probably the biggest influence in my basketball life, meeting him there and our relationship that's grown over 30 years, and the people that, follow him when Coach Tark left, Roy Massimino rolled in, and his assistant coaches. One of the guys was Jay Wright. One was Brett Gunning, who's now an assistant coach in the NBA. He was our manager. He was assistant coach for the Houston Rockets, and Brett was there. And Tom Pecora, who was a college coach for a long time. Those are relationships you made 30 years ago that you still touch base with those guys to this day. And it's such a small town when you live in the basketball community. And I think one of the things I really truly enjoy about this business is the relationships and the relationship building, but certainly the maintaining of relationships. And I just look back and I look at all the things that got me to this point. I'm very blessed. I was very lucky. But man, the people that helped me get here, I do not ever want to take it lightly. How much their contributions helped me get here, and how grateful I am for them.
You mentioned you met your wife there. I got to throw in a dad question, one dad to another. I got 4 kids. You've got 7.
We should go in on HMO together.
How in the hell, Tommy, do you find time to do work
Hey,
and do your kids and all their functions and all that kind of stuff? Where does that all fit in?
Well, fortunately, we spaced enough years between them that the older ones are actually kind of they're surrogate parents sometimes. But I married a saint, have wonderful children that have great compasses, and we really learned from jump. I've been married 26 years to never ever focus on a calendar or obsess about a date. Let's go ahead, and sometimes we're going to celebrate your birthday on Tuesday instead of the actual date. And sometimes we have Thanksgiving on a Wednesday, and sometimes we open our Christmas presents a couple of days earlier. Whatever it's going to be, don't get really focused on a date, because dates are going to get sacrificed. Sometimes the NBA puts us on Christmas Day. We play on Easter so many times. There's so many holidays that get compromised because of this business. So many times you have to choose, and you have to go on the road with the team rather than be there for an anniversary or Valentine's Day, God forbid, which is always during All-Star Weekend. So I have to celebrate Valentine's Day any other time than Valentine's Day. But what you end up having to do over the time, I think, is don't count the time, make the time count. It sounds kind of corny, but that's how we always operated.
So basketball on a world stage, you worked a lot with the Olympics, things like that, Sarunas, Marcelonis. What was your biggest takeaway from all of that?
He practiced saying that name so many times before he got
here.
Sarunas,
Marcelonis, there you go. So the global impact of basketball, it certainly shows itself today, right? A quarter of the leagues from international areas, but at that time in '96, that probably transformed my life. We had a trade. Unfortunately, we traded Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf to Sacramento for Sharunas Marcelonis, and he happened to be playing for Lithuania at the '96 Olympics in Atlanta. So I had to go introduce myself to him. And that same year, when I was in Denver, we drafted Ephemios Rencius, who actually was playing in the Olympics for Greece. So that's really what my very first scouting reports that I ever did on international games were at the '96 Olympics, because we had traded for a player and because we had drafted a player. It was just absolute fortune happened to me. I was very fortunate that that time, circumstance, everything kind of came together at that time. But Sarunas to this day is a business partner, more importantly, like a brother to me. He's in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Didn't turn out quite as good for Regius, but he played overseas for a long time. But those impactful moments of watching international games started really in '96 at those Olympics, and hasn't stopped since. When Sarunas played in the NBA, there were 4 international players. You think about that, and now, fast forward and where the league is, over a quarter of it, and it's going to keep coming. And it's not about international player anymore; it's about the best talent. You guys have heard me say before, I don't ever check IDs or passports. You play, you can stay, and I operate on that all the time, because to limit somebody, you look at a player and go, wow, he's really good, but he's from this country. No way. That doesn't make any sense. And seeing where Rui's at right now, knowing that the country he's from and how many players have played from Japan in the NBA previously, and knowing that, hey, this year, not just Rui, but now you have Yuta Baba playing with Dallas on an Exhibit 10. You have Yuta Watanabe, and we're so proud of him, playing in Memphis. There's 3 players from Japan in the last 2 years coming to the NBA. That is an amazing thing, but I think it's going to continue to be more that way than not. And I think so many countries now, basketball is either the number 1, number 2 sport. I know the NBA is still really trying to help support basketball in China, but I tell you, what's happening now with the Basketball African League, that's going to really, I think, excite the growth in the NBA is going to be accelerated. If we can get developing players from the continent, it's going to be tremendous.
Neil and I both believe that the check passports or IDs, you can play, you can stay. You need to trademark that, Tommy. That is a phenomenal line. I don't know how many people agree with us, but we definitely think you should do that. And speaking of playing and staying, you talk about the success of the Mystics the last 2 years. How much fun has that been to just kind of oversee, look and watch how that team has been rebuilt, really?
I'm not sure if you guys are aware. I know Coach Tebow since he was an assistant with George back in the day. And, from Sonics Milwaukee, the times that we've always known each other over 20-plus years of relationship has always been, that's somebody that I always would ask questions of, because he's so gifted offensively, great eye for talent, and he's somebody I learned a lot from. Tell me what the player can do. Don't tell me what they can't do, because we know what they can't do. And I always remember that about Mike. And he took so much time for me when I was coming into the league. And then when he transferred to the women's game and went up to the Sun, still watching his teams be so successful, and he stayed connected to the NBA at all times. And he makes every year he makes treks out to go see NBA games, and so we always stayed connected. So watching Mike when he came in here and what he's dealt with, building up the Mystics, this has been so gratifying for me to watch a dear friend kind of get to this point. It didn't happen in 2 years. It happened over the entire tenure that he came here. And I think we lose sight of those things. In the moments of success, you lose sight of what it took to get you there. I always try to tell him, Coach, enjoy this ride. Enjoy it, man. You're one of the fortunate people that went back to the finals the following year. Some people get to the finals, they never went back. Even when he was with the Sonics, with George, they never went back to the finals. When he was in Milwaukee, Chicago, all these opportunities that he's had over the years to be with great players, great champions and stuff, with the Mystics, you never know what's going to happen next year. Enjoy this moment. And it's so extra gratifying with Christy, obviously one of our favorite assistant coaches. Shouldn't have a favorite, but she is. It works great with our players. Watching her out there with Elena, Emma, the rest of the crew do their thing, Natasha and Ariel, all of our players argue over who their favorite player is, and they change it every day. I think that's been a big byproduct of the basketball community at St. E's and spending time together, not just on the floor, but watching film together, watching each other's practices, eating in the same place, hanging out together. It really grows relationships authentically. And I think them coming to our games in the fall would be fun too. It's just such a neat atmosphere to be part of.
So speaking of that, there's been a lot more seemingly interest from fans in the WNBA this season. What have you made of that, and how excited does that make you?
I almost have to. I don't understand why it's this year. I've been, back to the '96 Olympics again, and when the WNBA was formed, right coming out of that, I worked with USA Basketball, men and women.
Okay.
I was part of that gold medal. That team there was a huge impression on me. So I've always followed the W. I've always been excited about it, and so I think this year maybe there's more opportunities to see it on national television. That helps out certainly a whole bunch. But I think the stories being curated and told are so much better now. More opportunities, and there's so many more platforms to do. I think people such as Hoop District, the stories that you can generate, that it's reaching more fans at a ground level than before. If just one newspaper editor has the decision if he's going to do a story or she's going to do a story about the Mystics or not, and that's going to control the fan base, that's a tragedy, right? But now there's so many more platforms that you can get your information from. I think that grows fans easily, and the players who can't get behind this team. They play the right way. They have fantastic personalities. They're hard workers and they're great players. That's somebody that I look out there and I know I can say this 100%. She's one of the best players on the planet. Not one of the best women players. She's one of the best basketball players I've ever seen.
Now, speaking of a team, it's been said that you're an extremely resourceful executive. You kind of taken now the team approach on the court and now are kind of molding your entire leadership group in a team effort, right? You're taking in all these different ideas and stuff. Now, you specifically mentioned JT3 for players, Sachi for organizational stuff. Can you just talk about maybe to the average fan, maybe what are some of the things that you're doing differently that weren't being done before? Yeah,
I don't ever look backwards. I just know if I ever had an opportunity to do this job, and now that I do, I always felt it's so important to collaborate, to get so many more ideas and information and insights before you make a decision, because there's a great danger if you say this is really what I believe and this is how I see it and this is what my gut tells me, so we're all going to do this, and that decision that I make is going to impact all of you, and I'm not going to let any of you have a say in that. That's so dangerous and so selfish and so very, very, I think, detrimental to an organization. So I've always been somebody that I seek the wisdom of counsel. I seek the wisdom of crowds sometimes, and I think being able to sit and really, if I feel one way, I want 10 people in the room to tell me why you shouldn't feel that way. And I think eventually we'll get to the answer. If I bring in people and they just say, hey, you're right, and every time that's all I hear from them, I know for a fact, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm either by myself or you better get out of that room. I want to have smart people around me to help in making decisions. And I like to think I helped other people make decisions by that. And so I saw how much impact I could have with other people, offering up suggestions and what I believe and things that I would do. now I have that opportunity with our staff, and it's been wonderful. But I think sometimes the best ideas in deadline or at the draft, they started 2-3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that we onboarded, new staff wise, I don't think any of them I've ever not known for a very long period. And you get to know the people that you work with, certainly as you go through life in the NBA, but you don't really know someone until you work with them under one roof. And that's been so gratifying. We have great people across every platform in monumental basketball, but particularly within the Wizards family, I think we have some people that are just going to be superstars.
All right, so to wrap up, we're going to finish all of our interviews that we do from here on forward with 2 segments. The first one is going to be first thing that comes to mind when I say the name.
Great.
Second one is going to be this or that. All
Okay.
right, so first segment. First thing that comes to mind, Abe Pollin.
He was a titan in the community.
Eddie Jordan.
Princeton offense. First head coach I worked with here in the Washington Wizards. That's
Correct.
2 things.
Karan Butler.
Tough juice.
Antoine Jameson.
Franchise.
Gilbert.
Unbelievable player.
Flip Saunders.
A saint.
John Wall.
Tremendous player.
Bradley Beal.
He's a cornerstone.
Rui.
Potential. Tremendous potential.
Ted Leonsis.
Double bottom line, unbelievable person who will absolutely do whatever it takes to see the best for his franchise, but for his employees, for everybody he comes in contact with. He genuinely cares about their welfare and their success.
All right, quick hitters. PS4 or Xbox?
PS4.
Coke or Pepsi.
Water.
Favorite meal?
A lot of that. If you can tell, since you're on the air, you can't see, I'm caloric friendly, so I have a lot of favorite meals. I'd probably say it goes to who you're sitting down with, but man, that's
Tough one. Is
too many.
I thought I was going to stump you with some of these other things, but that was
I eat a lot of different
stuck
stuff.
there. All
I eat
right.
all over the world. I would say a great meal is always going to be at Argentinian steakhouse.
All right.
So then, speaking of, how do you take your steak?
Medium rare.
Go-to song on your playlist?
Victor Lap.
Green Day or Nirvana?
Oh, come on, Green Day.
Tupac or Biggie?
Tupac, come on, man.
Free throw contest between Elena Deladon or Dave Hopla?
It'd be one hell of a tie. It'd be a long tiebreaker. I would give it to Elena. She's younger. She's got better stroke, but don't count Hopper out. He can make shots.
Greatest player of all time is?
Besides Michael?
Thank you. That answered that one. Tommy, I've been a fan of this team for 35 years.
Thank
We've
you.
got a ton of fans who have been following us over the last 12 years that we've been doing this. If you have one message to give to that fan base about the Wizards today and moving forward, that message is?
Tremendous optimism. We're going to be hardworking, high-character players. We're going to leave it all out on the floor. We're going to do whatever we can to develop, hold people accountable, and grow.
It's Hoop District, Neil Dalal, Joe Glorioso, here with Tommy Sheppard. Tommy, thank you for your time. Scott, thank you for your time. Appreciate you guys.
Thank
We'll
you
talk
very
during the
much for
season,
having
man.
me on.
Of course,
It's been
man.
a pleasure.
Appreciate it, Tommy.